What if some of classic Hollywood's brightest love stories were never meant for you to see? Behind studio smiles, red carpets, and carefully written magazine profiles, another world existed. Quiet glances, private rooms, lifelong bonds hidden in plain sight. Halfway through this list, things stop feeling accidental and start looking carefully arranged. And by the end, you may realize Hollywood did not erase these stories. It simply trusted time to forget them. That trust may have been a mistake. Number 15, Lily Palmer. Lily Palmer moved through Hollywood like a secret written in cursive, elegant, measured, never rushed. She belonged to two worlds at once: the glamour of American cinema and the private salons of European artists where labels mattered far less than connection. Publicly, Palmer's life appeared neat and polished. Magazine profiles framed her as refined, intelligent, and emotionally reserved. But within the circles she trusted, stories followed her quietly. Not loud rumors, not tabloid chaos, just consistent whispers from people who noticed, who stayed late, who traveled together, and who disappeared into conversations that felt deeper than friendship. Palmer's early years in Berlin and London placed her inside artistic communities where affection flowed more freely. When she arrived in Hollywood, she brought that worldview with her. The studio system expected romance that could be photographed. Palmer preferred bonds that could not. What makes her story linger is not a single name or moment. It is the pattern, the way women appeared in her life during career shifts, the way her closest connections rarely needed explanation. Friends later described her as someone who built emotional loyalty quietly and protected it fiercely. Lily Palmer did not challenge Hollywood directly. She simply lived slightly outside its script. That subtle distance kept her safe and made her story easy to overlook. But absence can speak as loudly as confession, sometimes more. Number 14, Jean Aker. Jean Aker's name is remembered for a marriage that barely existed, but that is only the surface of a much stranger story. In the early silent era, Aker married a rising screen idol in a union that collapsed almost immediately. The public explanation focused on incompatibility. Hollywood moved on quickly, too quickly. Behind closed doors, insiders whispered a different reason, one that made studio executives nervous enough to redirect the narrative entirely. Aker moved within circles where women formed close emotional partnerships that did not fit the era's expectations. She was often seen in the company of actresses who preferred privacy over performance. Her closest bonds rarely involved men at all. Those who knew her best understood that the brief marriage served a purpose beyond romance. What followed was isolation. Roles slowed, invitations faded. Aker never chased public sympathy. She withdrew instead, allowing Hollywood to rewrite her story without resistance. That silence protected others, but it erased her voice. Her legacy survives through contradiction. A woman placed into a spotlight she never wanted, then quietly removed once the illusion cracked. Jean Aker reminds us that sometimes the shortest Hollywood stories hide the deepest truths. Number 13, May Wong. May Wong lived under a double spotlight. Fame followed her everywhere. Acceptance did not. As the first major Chinese-American star, Wong navigated an industry that limited her roles and controlled her image relentlessly. Every public appearance was watched, every relationship measured. That pressure shaped her private life in ways Hollywood never acknowledged. Away from studio gates, Wong found understanding among artists, writers, and performers who also lived between worlds. In those spaces, emotional bonds formed quietly. Friends later recalled relationships that felt deep, supportive, and lasting, not designed for magazines, designed for survival. Because of the era's racism, Wong carried risks others did not. Any personal choice outside expectation could end her career instantly. That reality demanded discretion beyond normal caution. She protected herself by surrounding her life with trusted people who understood silence as care, not secrecy. Her story matters because it shows how layered invisibility can be. Wong was already fighting to exist on screen. Her private life required even more careful navigation. Love did not disappear. It simply learned how to move quietly. Hollywood celebrated her image. It never understood the cost of maintaining it. Number 12, Barbara Stanwyck. Barbara Stanwyck mastered control like few others ever did. Her performances were sharp, her public image even sharper. Rising from hardship to become one of Hollywood's most respected stars, Stanwyck learned early that privacy was power. She avoided spectacle, she avoided confession, and she built a personal world that required no explanation. At the center of that world was a lifelong partnership with her publicist, a bond that outlasted marriages, studios, and trends. They traveled together, lived together, protected each other fiercely. To outsiders, it looked professional. To insiders, it felt permanent. Stanwyck never addressed rumors. She did not deny them. She did not feed them. She simply continued living as she chose. That refusal unsettled Hollywood more than any statement ever could. What makes her story powerful is consistency. No chaos, no collapse, just decades of quiet loyalty. In an industry built on performance, Stanwyck's real rebellion was stability. Sometimes the most defiant choice is not explaining yourself at all. Number 11. Dorothy Arzner. Dorothy Arzner did not wait for permission. She built her own space. As the only woman directing regularly inside the studio system, Arzner stood apart immediately. Her confidence, her style, her refusal to soften herself. None of it fit expectations, and she did not try to make it fit. Arzner lived openly within Hollywood's inner circles with her longtime partner. While the press never framed it directly, the industry understood, and quietly, it made room for her because her talent demanded it. Her films often centered women who resisted easy answers, characters who valued independence, friendship, emotional truth over fantasy. Those choices were not accidental. Arzner mentored young actresses and protected them when she could. She created environments where people felt seen without being exposed. That balance was rare and powerful. Her legacy is not hidden. It was simply never advertised. Dorothy Arzner proved that quiet certainty can change an industry without asking approval. Number 10. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford never survived Hollywood by accident. She survived by control. From the moment she arrived at MGM, Crawford understood the rules better than most. Image was currency. Mystery was protection. Anything that did not fit the approved story had to be redirected, softened, or buried entirely. Over the years, quiet talk followed her through dressing rooms and studio corridors. Deep bonds with women that went far beyond casual friendship. Long private conversations. Intense loyalty. Connections that felt personal rather than strategic. Some insiders believed the studio intervened early, reshaping narratives before they could take root. Crawford herself never clarified anything. She reinvented instead. New hairstyles, new roles, new personas. Each transformation created distance between the public and the private woman underneath. What makes her story fascinating is not proof. It is persistence. The same names resurfacing across decades. The same silences maintained even when speaking openly could have simplified things. Joan Crawford did not live transparently. She lived deliberately. And in Hollywood, that difference matters. Number 9. Mercedes de Acosta. Mercedes de Acosta was not hidden. She was everywhere. And that made her dangerous. Unlike actresses who relied on studios, Mercedes moved freely through Hollywood as a writer, poet, and social figure. She did not need contracts to survive. She needed conversation, and she collected both stories and people with equal intensity. Her name appears again and again beside some of classic Hollywood's most guarded figures. Not as rumor, but as presence. Letters, visits, long emotional attachments that shaped lives quietly. What unsettled many was her memory. Mercedes remembered everything. She kept notes, saved letters, preserved moments others wanted forgotten. To her, these connections were meaningful chapters, not secrets to be erased. Later, when fragments of her personal archives surfaced, discomfort followed. Not because she invented stories, but because she refused to destroy them. Mercedes de Acosta did not fit Hollywood's system because she did not fear memory. She believed truth mattered, even if it arrived late. Number 8. Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead never whispered. She declared, even when the room begged for quiet. Loud, charming, unpredictable. Bankhead lived as if reputation were optional. She joked openly, flirted freely, and formed bonds that ignored convention entirely. Hollywood tolerated her behavior because she was entertaining. But tolerance is not acceptance. Within her social world, Attraction followed energy, not rules. Women were never excluded from her attention. Friends described her as fearless in private, playful in public, and uninterested in explanation. Studios worried constantly, not because of specific actions, but because Bankhead refused to act embarrassed. That confidence made management uneasy. Her career rose and stalled in waves, often disconnected from talent. That pattern told its own story. Tallulah Bankhead lived exactly as she pleased. Hollywood never knew what to do with someone who refused to pretend. Number 7, Katharine Cornell. Katharine Cornell mastered dignity as a form of defense. While Hollywood chased headlines, she built permanence. As a towering figure of American theater, Cornell existed slightly outside the studio machine. Her marriage functioned as partnership rather than romance, allowing both individuals freedom without scrutiny. Behind the scenes, Cornell formed deep emotional bonds with women in the theater world. These relationships were not chaotic or hidden in panic. They were organized, respected, quietly understood. Her home became a refuge, a place where artists could exist without performance. No cameras, no explanations. What makes Cornell's story powerful is its calm. No rebellion, no collapse, just consistency. Sometimes survival does not require defiance. It requires structure. Number 6, Eva Le Gallienne. Eva Le Gallienne refused to disappear politely. She made space instead. A towering presence in theater, Le Gallienne lived openly among artistic circles that valued honesty over approval. While Hollywood kept its distance, the stage offered her something rarer: freedom. Her relationships with women were not rumors. They were acknowledged within her community. That openness limited her screen opportunities but strengthened her legacy elsewhere. Le Gallienne chose truth over access, and that choice shaped everything that followed. Hollywood prefers silence. Eva Le Gallienne preferred reality. Number 5, Billie Burke. Billie Burke looked like safety itself. Soft voice, gentle smile, eternal grace. To audiences, she was warmth and reassurance. A presence that felt harmless and familiar. But behind that carefully preserved image existed a far more layered private world. Burke moved easily through elite artistic circles, where emotional bonds between women were quietly accepted, if never openly described. Friends noted her ease in those spaces, the way certain friendships carried unusual depth, the way proximity mattered more than public explanation. Her marriage offered cover, her charm offered protection. Studios saw no reason to question what appeared perfect. What makes Burke's story linger is how easily it vanished from conversation. Not because it lacked substance, but because it fit too smoothly into silence. Sometimes the safest secrets are the ones no one thinks to challenge. Hollywood remembered her as kindness. History may yet remember her as complexity. Number 4, Alla Nazimova. Alla Nazimova did not hide the circle, she built it, and everyone knew where to find it. Her home became a gathering place for artists who needed relief from performance, music, laughter, long conversations that did not require translation. It was whispered about, but rarely challenged. Nazimova understood discretion, but she refused isolation. She believed safety came from community, not denial. Women found connection there, support, recognition without explanation. The phrase sewing circle became shorthand. Not a joke, a signal. Those who knew, knew. Her influence extended beyond private gatherings. It shaped careers, protected friendships, created a network that allowed people to exist without fear. Hollywood tolerated Nazimova because she was powerful, but it never forgot her difference. She did not ask to be remembered quietly. She ensured she would not be forgotten at all. Number 3, Marjorie Main. Marjorie Main built a career by playing noise while living her truth quietly. On screen, she was loud, eccentric, and unforgettable. Off-screen, she was controlled, consistent, and deeply private. Main arrived in Hollywood later than most. She had already lived, already chosen who she was, and already decided what she would never explain. That maturity gave her leverage. Studios saw a character actress. They did not look closely at the life behind the roles. Within her private world, Main formed long-term emotional bonds with women who shared her preference for stability over spectacle. These were not fleeting connections. They were domestic, routine, familiar. Friends described her home life as calm and intentional, far removed from the chaos she performed on camera. What protected Main was usefulness. She delivered reliable performances, stayed out of publicity dramas, and never invited scrutiny. Hollywood rewards predictability, even when it does not understand it. Her story matters because it challenges the idea that secrecy always comes from fear. Sometimes it comes from certainty. Marjorie Main did not live quietly because she was unsure. She lived quietly because she did not owe anyone access. In an industry obsessed with exposure, choosing privacy was its own form of control. Number 2. Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich understood something most Hollywood stars never did. Silence could be shaped, speculation could be managed, and confidence, when worn openly, could disarm almost anyone. From her earliest appearances, Dietrich rejected narrow expectations. Her fashion choices alone unsettled studios. Tailored jackets, relaxed posture, a presence that refused to apologize. She never explained herself because she never needed to. That refusal created distance, and distance created power. Within Hollywood, her private life was widely discussed but rarely challenged. Friends were aware, studio executives were aware, yet nothing ever stuck long enough to threaten her position. Dietrich did not hide. She normalized ambiguity until it lost its edge. What made her unusual was her certainty. She did not perform innocence or mystery. She simply moved forward as if permission had already been granted. That posture forced the industry to adapt rather than confront. Dietrich's legacy is not about secrecy. It is about ownership. She lived openly without clarification and allowed others to fill in the gaps however they wished. In a system built on control, Marlene Dietrich chose authorship, and Hollywood never quite caught up. Number 1. Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo unsettled Hollywood because she refused participation, not in film, in explanation. At the height of her fame, Garbo stepped back from everything audiences were trained to expect. Interviews became rare. Public appearances disappeared. Studio-crafted romance simply stopped. This was not strategy. It was boundary. Her closest relationships existed far from cameras and contracts. Emotional connections that never needed validation from fan magazines or studio approval. Those bonds shaped her private world more deeply than any role ever could. Garbo's silence was misread as mystery. In truth, it was clarity. She knew exactly how much of herself she was willing to give and stopped there. Hollywood tried to solve her. Biographers tried to decode her. None succeeded because Garbo was not hiding something waiting to be revealed. She was choosing what to withhold. She did not fade away. She stepped aside deliberately, and by doing so, she left behind something rarer than fame: control. Garbo remains unsolved because she never offered the key. Hollywood taught us to look for spectacle, but these stories lived in the quiet spaces, the pauses, the choices not explained. If you listen closely, the patterns are impossible to miss. These women did not vanish. They adapted. They connected. They endured. So which story surprised you most? Which one felt familiar? Drop your thoughts below, subscribe for more hidden history, and remember this: silence does not erase truth. It only delays it.